All right. So, good morning, everyone. On behalf of Regenesis, I'm delighted to welcome you to this session of AI for Leaders. I'm Shiv Pal. I work as an associate director for Generative AI Strategy at Regenesis. So, before we move further, I would like to start with saying that let me set up a quick context, right? Who we are. So, Regenesis, let me, is my PPT visible to everyone? Can
Yes,
you all see that as well? Okay, fair enough. So, who we are. So, Regenesis is a global capability transformation partner working with over 10,000 clients across 12 plus countries, empowering 5 lakhs professional. We work across industries to help organization not just understand AI, but actually implement it, apply it to drive real business outcomes. So, this is in short who we are. So today, like we are here for to understand how leaders can transform using AI. So in age of AI, every role is evolving towards AI, especially when it comes to the leadership. Things are not well defined. You can connect this with if I talk about any AI engineer, the roles and responsibilities clearly articulated. You might have seen many job openings as well that talks about AI for engineers, AI solution architects. But I'm not sure, have you ever heard of tagline like AI CTO or AI for CFOs? So that's where in even though we are in age of AI, the leadership level things are still blur. Now, when it comes to at a leadership level, what are the things critical for us? As most of us are agree that today we are in an age of AI where most of the things are at either awareness stage or implementation stage. So there most of the businesses, organizations who are trying to implement AI, they are mostly are in pilot phase. They are experimenting different ways, whether it'll, how exactly they can succeed. But let me tell you, and this is something which not I am saying, but a report that is published by at Forbes by MET. This report talks that 95% of AI pilot failed. How many of you have actually heard this report? Can I just get a quick yes, no, Nitin, Ankit? Have you heard about this report? Guys, my humble request is if because you have invested 1 hour on Sunday, if you could just talk, it will really help to understand the context and probably we could better engage in a discussion. So anyway, I think this is a very popular report among leaders. And it is really shocking because we are putting billions of dollars into the AI. And by seeing this figures that talks about 95% of AI failed, this is a wake up call. It means there is something most of the leaders are not doing correctly. So if you take deeper look of this report, it talks about 30 to 40 billion of enterprise investment, but still 95% of the corporate initiative have zero return. A very, I would say it's very shocking call, but that's the truth. And that comes after research. Now, I've really at Regenesis, we love to explore and dig deeper into such kind of report because this really help us to understand where we are today, what we are lacking, which we could include on in our program to empower to transform the leaders. Now, here, one thing is very prominent here that most of the leaders failed because many decision makers do not really understand technology. So the abstract use case in operation finance can be hard to explain. One of the key reasons from this report come out of this. So that's where the first step is technology. As a leaders, we need to understand technology probably at a high level, but to that extent where we could understand how these apps we are, whatever we are working, how these operates, how fundamentally these app works. So if I talk about, there are in market, we have a huge number of AI, apps out there which we are using. Very common is Chat GPT, Claude. Now, as a leaders, let's understand how basically these app functions. So all the generative AI apps are powered by large language model. What is large language model? In a very non-tech sense, large language model is a machines that is work on a technology which is very much resembling human intelligence, and this machine is trained with a huge set of data, of course public in nature. Now because it has trained on so much of public data, which is I mean, I would say it's billions of documents is being trained with. Now because it is being trained with this data, they are capable of answering any question which you might ask to them, any industry, any surface, anything you ask to them. Of course there should not be any private or confidential information of any organization that they can't answer because they are not trained with. Other than that, if you ask anything, those model respond. Now one more layer attached to here is, when I go to any generative AI app, let's take an example, Chat GPT, and if I search something, how's the weather today, it's very important for for you to understand that as soon as I put a query, large language model start generating response on real time depending on the data it is trained with. It is not some pre-existed information, it generates this content real time. Now when I say it's real time generating, but again how it is getting generated is generate one by one. Each and every word is generating one by one. So every next word which is coming is a coming from a pool of possibility depending on the context, depending on the input. That's all. At least if this much of fundamental as a leaders we are aware, it helps us understand that there are hundreds of app out there, but these different large language models are trained with a different sort of data. Now because it is trained with a different sort of data, that's where the response might vary. Something which is being trained with a very huge amount of data might give you a very deeper, more reasonable answer. So at least this much of fundamental we should be very clear. Any questions so far? My humble request is you please ask. Like I told you that in the age of AI, this call we are setting up, this master classes entire intention is to give you some clarity around this so that you could probably function better in your roles. Is this clear? Can I say yes or no?
Shiv, they will put their questions in the chat box. Since
Okay.
it's a webinar, we'll be able to engage with you over there.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, so I can see the chat. Thanks, Faza. Okay, okay. My bad. I didn't see that. Okay. So just a minute. I'm just trying to please put your question in the chat bot. Okay. Can I ask that? Are we clear at least this much part? Yes or no? Can you please use your chat and answer? Can I get yes or no? At least so far we are good. Nitin, Amit, Ankit, Minal. Okay, I'll move on. Now, so we if you understand the technology, that what is the underlying engine that powers these apps, the next comes what difference it could make in life of a leader. Is it because you are not the AI developer, you don't need to develop any large language model. It is essentially leaders, it is helping leaders to frame a decision framework, how we could make a decision. That is all AI is helping leaders. I can give you one example, which is a very real world example of one of the CEO of a European company. He has to do a survey. Now this engagement survey they have published, because it is a well known company, they have received close to 2 million responses. Now please give it a thought. Think that you are a leader. You are probably handling a company, you have a product which is a B2C or e-commerce product, you have a huge customer base, and you have done one survey, and that kind of huge response you have received. Now think for a moment that you are not in large language model age. Typically, how does that work? So this entire huge survey will go to analytics team. They probably take 5 6 days of time to go through, probably convert this into a structured response. They analyze this response one by one, and once their report is ready, they pass on this data to probably someone who is part of the presentation team, who will create a beautiful presentation to portray this data very clearly, right? Think today, as soon as, and this is not my words, this is word of Mark Conan. He was the CEO who has done the survey. He simply ran this response through large language model, and he just asked two questions in a very natural language. He asked, what are top three strengths my customer sees in my product? And he got a very crafted response in just probably 1 minute. His next question was, what are the three improvements or three gaps in our product what we need? And again, under 2 minutes, he got a very well crafted response with the right reasoning, along with pointing to the statistics what people talked about it. That's the power of AI. That's how AI helping leaders to shrink this decision framework. Now earlier, this was 1 week of cycle, which was they were taking this data, it's going through a lot of things, then it is going through multiple people. The leaders is very much dependent on that team member to present and craft and modify and polish this information, and then it was reaching to the actually leadership team. Now it's simply all these dependency has removed, and leaders, even though they are not very tech savvy, but AI has empowered them to quickly run through this decision framework and understand what data talks, what data says. There is no technology barrier that is blocking them, between them and the data. I hope you agree with this part. This is a very, this is a very, I would say, very astonishing example that really portray how the successful AI leaders are using technology today. Any questions in this example? Let me quickly, Faza, I would request you help me. I would help you if I need to flip back a screen here and there. If there is any question, you can please help me to understand that. Okay.
Sure, Shiv. If there are any questions, I'll give you a quick prompt to answer them. One request is if you can please share the presentation full screen.
Oh, yeah. Sure. So that's one of the aspects of where I'm talking about that decision is shrinking. Now, second aspect, as a leader, you need to understand that every decision at leadership level has a cost. The example what we just saw, where you see 95% of the pilot failed, it's because, as you saw, that as a leader, some decision, something has been happened with not proper reason, some wrong decision has been done which lead them to failure. The 5% pilot that made their way to production, they have done something strategically correct. So as a in today's modern age, when we have that leverage in our sessions, regenesis emphasis on learning all the data to understand what's not working for the organization, what's not working for the leaders, so that we learn and help leader to build their strategies, something that 5% leaders were able to make. So it's very important to understand what is the difference between a failed decision and the correct decision. Now I'm coming to the another aspect of strategy. If I have to implement, let's say, I'm again telling you because we are into the transformation industry where we've been conducting sessions across awareness session, fundamental sessions, to application session, and then advanced leadership session for many industries. We are talking to them, we are getting a lot of insights from them as well. And one thing which you can realize in your organization as well, that most of organizations are trying to create awareness that how to use AI, what is the right way of use, what are the right tools. That's what they are creating awareness, among their workforce. Awareness does not create impact. Application does. So the next level, the leaders, whosoever are thinking to upgrade their organization, they have to focus, they have to move quickly from awareness to application. Now, application has multiple, it's like multiple fold journey. In application, first, we need to decide that in different lines of business, what are the right workflows where I need to implement this. And again, I would like to quote some of the research report here, which could actually enlighten me. I hope it will impact you as well. So if you go to, again, I'm pointing to the same report. So if you see some of the organization to start with, they see that sales and marketing pilots dominate early AI effort. Why? Because they are easy to imagine and measure. So the outcome is very much quickly measurable. When there is a marketing team who are spending a huge amount of time to generate creatives, they can quickly use AI tool to generate the creatives. They can quickly generate marketing campaigns, a beautiful images, a beautiful tagline, which earlier were taking a lot of time. So it's true. That's the reason these department will become the probably the right candidate for the early adoption. At the same time, there are other aspects which these organizations have surfaced, they have observed, which is again negative aspect, but it helped them to finalize their strategy. So think of it like chatbot that enrich customers, because when there is a manual intervention, they try to kind of please their customer. But chatbots, they lack emotions. They could enrich their customers. The copies that erase brand voice. Brand is a very critical element for any organization. It's very important to ensure the control of that. Emails that offend prospects, especially in case of sales. Sales outreach that overwhelm without engaging. These are all examples which were ignored when we were starting with the AI, because we are only looking the happy aspect, the vanilla flow. But these research really enabled that whatever segment or line of business we are choosing as a pilot, we also look into these aspects. And it's very, very critical for any organization to consider all these aspects. Again, like I mentioned, at Regenesis, we analyze all these aspects and how to address it. There is a complete roadmap around it, which of course we are going to discuss at the last. Now, so it's like, so this example clearly says that we need to understand that, what are the right candidate, what are the right line of business for the early adoption. Now, this report has also mentioned one of the very, very interesting things, that companies are playing in shallow, ignoring deep value pools, and the MIT shows that real value so far have come from a less glamorous areas like back office automations. So this report clearly says that the major benefit we have observed in back office automation, procurement, finance, and operations. These are the area which was probably not glamorous, not lucrative for the AI adoption, but these are the department that has proven real business values, which is a which demonstrated a very good business impact into these areas. So that's, as a leaders, it's very important for you to understand this aspect, and that's where these reports, these research data really help us to understand what has went well, and if we wanted to adopt our strategy, what are the things, what are the data point we need to consider. Any questions so far? I'm sure if you are part of these departments, if you are handling these departments, you can discuss whether it is working for you, not working for you, because these are very credible reports which I'm pointing to. So, and which should help leaders to build their strategies. Okay, so the next part is, once we understood that probably there could be departments, line of business where we could plan our strategy, the very important aspect comes with the data governance. Let me quickly. Yep. So the data is, it is the next, I would say, the most valuable asset once in age of AI, because everything driven through data. All the decisions are totally depending on the data. Any prediction, any forecasting, whatever you are doing, it is your data that drives these forecasting. So in case of, whenever we are planning for AI implementation, every leader should be very careful how are we exposing our data to these AI tools. Because as part of my transformation, trainings to organizations, I've been involving with various departments, whether it's the finance department, compliance department, and every organization, and those who are successful, they have a very very fine tuned strategy how to, when it comes to the data exposure, what should we, how we should strategize our strategy. I'll again take one of the use case which can actually help you to understand this. I'm sure most of the organization you have heard, they have started using one or the other generative AI tool to boost their productivity. So for example, chat gpt many organizations use. At the same time, they know that once you put a data into the chat gpt, once you upload a document into the chat gpt, this document get exposed to the outside world, it goes to the OpenAI server, which is a parent company of chat gpt. Companies are not comfortable with sharing their sensitive information outside their bound. So as a leader, it becomes not just crucial, it becomes a mandatory that you need to really think how exactly my data is getting governed, what should be the, what should be the guardrails around which I need to operate my data. So without taking a name, I will say one of the rating agencies, they have the same challenge, because they have actually identified that the large language capability is really helping them to orchestrate their reasoning decisions around it. And we all agree, we all have used ChatGPT, we all have used Claude. We saw how large language model can help us to do our analysis in so much effective way. But at the same time, data exposure was the risk. So what they came up with, that if we wanted to really harness the power of large language model, at the same time, we don't want our data to go to any server, whether it's chat gpts, we don't want to send it to OpenAI server, I don't want to send it to Anthropic server, but still I wanted to use it, then the strategy would be self-hosting. There are so many models out there, which, whether it's OpenAI, they are also releasing. OpenAI have released 20 billion parameters model. They have released 100 billion parameter model. As a leaders, you can, if you want, you wanted to explore, you can simply go to Hugging Face. This is the one of the biggest repository of all the models. So this is all the models where all kind of models, free source, open source, all are available. If I talk about quickly, OpenAI, like I said, 120 billion parameter model, which is freely available over there. So these models, one of the very key element here is, I wanted to secure my data. The self-hosting strategy is the best way to procure, to make, or to guardrail our data. So what they have done, they have picked up any good models, probably not, because 120 billion model might be, it is a very resource intensive model. It really consumes a lot of infra. So that's where they have deployed a model at their own premise, and the data problem is solved. They have simply started, because it is hosted in their own on premise. So data is not going outside in any way. So that's one example of how exactly as a leader, you can ensure that your data is fully protected. It's not going outside, yet you can harness the power of large language model. So this is one use case, but same way there are many use cases which really enlighten leaders that okay, how should we strategize around data governance? That's one aspect. Any questions so far? You can please ask me if you have. If you wanted to understand how they have implemented this, what kind of things we need to, what are the prerequisites for it, we can discuss about it. Now the second aspect of data is, let me showcase again with you a real world example. So can you see this? I would really request you to spend at least 2 minutes onto this slide, which is really eye opening. It is happening around the globe. Amazon clearly warned employees not to share code. JP Morgan restricted access to ChatGPT in their organization. Apple banned internal use of ChatGPT and Copilot initially. Verizon blocked ChatGPT for employees. Think about it, why these news are surfacing around the internet. Why the organizations? Because every organization which I have listed in front of you, they all are very much data sensitive organizations. JP Morgan, which is one of the, they are managing billions of data from the high net worth individuals. They really can't they can't expose their data just like for for the sake of using chat gpt, right? So there is a very well well, I would say it's very well crafted way how we should use, how we should expose these tools to our workforce, and that is called the AI policy. Almost every organization at the moment are working towards their building AI policy that contain governance model, data governance, tool usage, that contain everything. Even I have I have conducted workshops for many organizations, and in my workshops they started sharing that okay, Shiv, we are in a process of building AI guardrails. So as a leaders, this is one of the framework and input for you, that you must start thinking towards that, that how exactly you can develop your AI guardrail for your own organization, for your, and that include all these aspects, that covers every aspect that touch with the data governance, with the tool usage, the productivity measurement, the evaluation, which department will use what tool, what is allowed for them, everything covers under AI policy. And almost every organization is doing that. Now, the second aspect, which as a leader you will be very much worry about or concerned about, which I have noted from different organizations where I've conducted workshops, because so much of tools are out there. What is the right tool for my organization? That question comes very frequently to the leaders. And as a leader, you are the decision maker for your company. So if you have to decide that out of whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, which tool we should recommend for our organization, and what are parameters that will help me to qualify your tool. So let me quickly take you through one of the scenario. So as you understood that mostly every tool is powered by large language model, which is worked on the more or less similar technology. Only the difference is to one, the kind of data it is trained with, and second, the kind of guardrails they are putting on top of it, make sure that you are getting the responses. A very classic example is Copilot. So when it comes to adoption of tool, Copilot has really is number one choice for most of the organization to adopt, right? And it is not just because they wish to, there is a proper reason behind it why they are choosing Copilot over others tool. So again, as a leader, when I say one can understand technology in a very effective manner, not again core deep of the technology, but at least at a level where they could make decisions, that could empower them to make decisions. So Copilot is one of the most preferred tool, because Copilot is something which is a Microsoft product, but if you look at the Copilot, most of the organizations already have their documents onto the SharePoint, which is the knowledge repository, the cloud-based knowledge repository of Microsoft Team. Every organization, whosoever are using the Microsoft suite of products, which is your Word, your Excel, your all strategic document, everything is already onto the SharePoint. Now it's very easy for an organization to say that, okay, because we are already having all the products of Microsoft, and so that we can simply upscale and we can add just one add-on as a co-pilot, which will start appearing in all your products. So the security and the guardrail side, Copilot Microsoft says that a user can operate only within a permissible boundaries of the document which is getting uploaded. It means a user who has access of a strategic document can only do the analysis. No one else can, because you don't have access to visible there. Read that document. So whatever document you have access to, you can read it, which means the permission boundaries is very much carved out. So your data security is high in this particular case. And that's where most of the organizations are preferring the Copilot as one of the preferred tools. Performance wise, probably the Claude is the best. I'm sure this you might be hearing in different news that Claude is by far, this is crossing all other tools when it comes to the reasoning power, when it comes to the content generation. But still the preference is Copilot. The data security is the core reason. But Copilot, I'm sure that it's a very strong recommendation that as a leader, if your organization is moving towards Copilot adoption, you must hands-on of Copilot so that you could utilize it in its full capacity. So first, let's understand how once you and exactly how we should use Copilot, right? Because I'm talking more about now post technology, the tools part. Copilot, one should never use without login. So again, as a leader, you should ensure that your team, whosoever is using Copilot, they should always use them into the log mode. Once they log in, then only they can use this tool. Why? Because if they don't log in, it is as simple as ChatGPT. Because once you log in, then only you can see this particular icon visible that talks about enterprise data protection, which means there are two meaning of this particular icon. The first meaning is your data, whatever you are putting, you are chatting, this data is getting a kind of enterprise grade encryption is applying over that data, which usually secure your data. Second aspect is whenever you are using this enterprise data protection and once you are login, your data is not trained. I mean, the model is not getting trained with your data. Very, very important aspect, probably the less focused one, but it's a very critical for every leader to understand that the every model is getting trained when you are not login. For example, chat gpt, if you so in case of chat gpt, if I quickly show you, if you don't log in and you go to the setting in data control, you can simply see improve the model for everyone. By default, the setting is on, which means the models is getting trained with all the conversations, the data upload, everything of user by default. So that's where it is very critical that in your organization, every employee or workforce must log in and then only use Copilot, so that their data, the model should not be trained with their data, the first aspect. Secondly, of course, in any case of hacking, the data must be encrypted with the enterprise grade security, so your data would be safe. Very, very important nuances. Every leader must understand that. Now, secondly, the prompt. How exactly you can write a prompt, that's also an art. When I say art, one should use 6 element framework. Of course, we can't cover today everything in just probably next 20 minutes we have. So all I'm trying to say that as a leaders, there is a better prompt can really help you to make a better decision. All I would say that, let's say if I'm gonna I'll just quickly demonstrate one of the prompt to you that you know so we define persona, act as a risk analyst and analyze the data, give me insight. If I say this, and I just simply upload one of the document. So one of the annual report I'm uploading, and I'm saying simply based on this annual report, analyze it, give me insights from this report. That's all. Now, once I do that, it generates the response, which might look very confident, very perfect to you. But I wanted to show you that why prompting is critical for leaders and in what way they should use it. I'm just giving you a glimpse. Let me just response to be generated. So, okay, there we are. So overall risk exposure, they are just putting this. Of course, I don't want to spend time reading this report, but usually that's how we leaders as a use. They craft a prompt, they gives, and they provide the sufficient document, and then they ask the result. Have you ever tried that the above response that looks perfect to me with simply saying that one prompt can really make you realize that there are gaps? Can you see key weakness and limitation? That underlying file could not actually be verified. Management optimized bias. All conclusion assumptions assume current loss forecast model. Macro assumptions hold. Deviation could materially alter the outcomes. Management optimization bias, account discretion, stress level, model limitation. So anything, whatever the at leadership level, if you are generating certain prompts, and based on which if you completely blindly trust on that response, it could risk your credibility, it could lead to certain the big problem. And I can again prove with certain example, which is a very famous, which almost I quote in all my sessions, is a Deloitte. So this is the second time they have, one of their analysts has generated a report using OpenAI model, and this report again contain lot of fabricated data that looks very confident. So as a leader, you need to be very very careful whenever you are generating any management report, any forecasting report, any decision making reports. You need to be very very careful, and that's where you always someone need to review that report before making any decisions. But why prompting? Because of just I as a prompt coach, I know that how can you write certain prompts to verify your output. So that's where the learning prompts for a leaders are very very essential skill. At the same time, in tools there is a lot of aspect, because most of people only use prompting, but there are so many agents which we could use to make our prompting much much better. So prompt coach is a default agent. When you go to all agents, you could find out, just type prompt, and it will automatically come up like this. Now let me quickly brief you what is the use of prompt coach. Prompt coach is used to craft a prompt. So let's say if I'm simply saying that create a prompt uh, for prompt to analyze a document. So typically we give very generic prompt. This particular tool would help me to, it'll most of the time it'll ask you more and more question that what exactly you want, identify key insights. This is what I'm trying to understand, right? So based on my goal, it'll ask me more and more question, and it'll craft a proper prompt for me. Can you see this? I would never ever imagine to write this kind of prompt in one shot. So this tool is being, this particular agent is designed in such a way that it could craft a prompt for you depending on your use case. Because I have given a very small use case, but once you ask more and more questions, it will give you more and more answers. So in our full workshop, we are planning to cover all these kind of agents where which really increase my productivity, which enable me to use this tools in a much better and effective way. Now, this is what there are more tools, there are more ways, there are more agents. How can we use these tools? But like I mentioned that as a leaders, this example, Deloitte example, is very essential for you to understand that hallucination could be another biggest challenge for you and your team. One need to be very super careful how to handle hallucinations. So there are a well defined strategy we could reduce. Can we mitigate hallucination? Answer is no. It cannot be 100% eliminated because large language model is worked on probabilistic model. So you cannot eliminate hallucination 100%. But can you minimize it? Of course, we can minimize it. How? There is a well defined strategy, which of course very difficult to cover in 1 hour session, but um, I could just give some of the some key points which you are using in your organization that could help you to reduce hallucination. Hallucination happens because, like I told you in the beginning, that AI or large language model is based on a technology that resembles human intelligence. So when you give any instruction to large language model, try to make sure that context is very much rich into it. The more scope for assumption in your instruction, the more hallucination can occur, because large language model feel that it will try to fill up the gap. Same thing has been happened in case of the Australian government, the Deloitte, whatever the report they were generating, they have asked for the code references because large language model couldn't find some, so it has generated fake references. That's what I'm saying, because the context should be rich enough, and whatever you are asking, you should ask in the constraint part. So there is a proper framework of how to write a good prompt that has the element like persona, task, context, constraint, input, output. So as part of the constraint, we can highlight this clearly, that you should not make any assumptions. You should only refer those data which is already existence. And the second strategy is you could give certain documents and see that I need all my response to be very much grounded from this document. So these are few strategies to reduce hallucination. um, Again, it's very important as a leader, whenever you are kind of making your workforce ready. So there is a lot of, along with the governance, that there is a lot of, you need to ensure that the rules what is getting emerged. If there is a tester in the technology team, that tester must be skilled with the hallucination testing. So we need to, of course, reskill kind of whatever the roadmap, whatever the current workforce we are having. As a leader, you need to work on the plan of how to, you can reskill them, you can make them to the up to the level that could fit within the rules of the AI. Any questions so far? You can please put in the comments. So, few more tools. Let's quickly take a look. Another very important aspect for a leaders at an organization is to ensure that we have a governance committee in place who approved what are the tool permissible for us. Let's say tomorrow, at the moment, if you ask today, there's a clearly lack of accountability in any organization if anything goes wrong with AI. As an example, if I'm generating a data, let's say if I'm talking example of, let's say, Amazon. Amazon serves millions of customer in the across the world. Any wrong product, and they are using, let's say, AI to support their product information. Any wrong information if AI would generate, who would be accountable for this? Is it this OpenAI? Because actually the large language model is owned by OpenAI. It is their model who has generated the wrong response. So is it OpenAI responsible for it? Is it the development team who has developed that feature by integrating OpenAI? Are they responsible for this particular impact? So there is a clearly lack of accountability, that if things goes not as per your expectation, who would be accountable for this? this kind of accountability, responsibility must be defined in age of AI at every organization, which is clearly lack at the moment. You can think about in your organization, if you put who is a part of the governance committee, who's the, where I could find the accountability or racy metrics, I'm sure you will not find anywhere in your organization. You can go and you can check, because I've been talking to the leaders and I know that this lacks in the organization. Third very most important aspect in an organization, if so, again, with this slides, I wanted to just give a context that how the data is very important. So that's where the data sensitivity metrics is a very critical for every organization to maintain. And as a leader, you must maintain this to ensure that, what, whenever there are publicly available tools where we could upload our data. For example, if I'm doing a competitor analysis, it's a public data. I can use any tool. So again, when I'm talking about policy, like HR policy, someone wanted to walk through, I wanted to create a chatbot of AI. So it is, if it is internal policies, again the Copilot, MS Copilot is probably one of the most preferred tool to use, because it limits your access within the boundaries of whatever the organization have with the Microsoft. If it is a sensitive data, then like I mentioned in the beginning, right, the self-hosted or the private chat GPT is probably the most preferred approach. How to do it, it's a very detailed talk we'll discuss, maybe if you will be part of the our next journey. There are certain things which talks about merger and acquisition plans or the board decisions. We should avoid any kind of large language model when it comes to maintaining these data. So that kind of sensitivity metrics, as a leaders, you need to ensure that you must maintain, and that must be sanitized with, of course, the workforce. Now, so we understood that AI is, of course, something everyone, every department, every workforce, every line of business wanted to adopt to boost their productivity. But what are the right areas where we should use AI, or to be very specific, generative AI? So here is a clearly listed pattern that talks about when we wanted to analyze the data, whenever we wanted to fraud detection, anomaly spotting, demand forecasting. These are the right areas to use AI. But when it comes to any crisis scenario, any trade-offs and value decisions, it is the human value, it is the human emotional intelligence that comes to the picture. So you should avoid using AI into these listed area, whatever is just in front of you. Why? Because AI might lack the human consciousness. See, we know that there are many situations where we need to think, and that's where there is a word which is a very famous in world of AI, human in loop. So we need to use AI simply as a assistant, a very intelligent assistant that could empower me a lot of data points, that could empower me with a lot of recommendations. But it is me, ultimately the leader in the organization, who need to make a decision. I will not let AI to make any decisions. That's where we need to be very careful. Okay, so there are so many good tools. I would say very popular tool among which every leaders must use. Notebook LM, Claude Perplexity, Microsoft Copilot, Teachable Machine, Dali, Anyten. We are moving very fast in age of AI, and I think now at the moment a lot of things are around agentic AI. How exactly this transformation happened, with a very simple one example, you can understand that last 2023 24, where we are using any generative AI, whether chat GPT, Claude, you give an instruction, that gives you an outcome. You give an instruction, give me the list of top 10 companies that doing this, it'll give me the research report around the technologies of AI, it'll give you. It's like an instruction. You give instruction, you get the response. But now we are we are moving with the speed of light into the age where now we are moving towards a new technology which is called agentic AI, that talks about you just define a goal, and because of the reasoning capability, it will reason and list out the the list of tasks, and then even execute it these tasks for you. without human intervention. That is called agentic AI. A very simple example is I just wanted to plan a trip for Goa, and I will say, go and plan a trip for Goa for me. It'll just look at my calendar. So only I have given a instruction. Ultimately, what is my objective? What is my primary goal? Is what trip to Goa. What will happen? This LLM, it'll simply, or I would agentic AI, I would say, because it is consist of LLM with a lot of tools around it. It'll simply look into the my calendar. It'll check what is my availability and whether, as per this availability, what are the rooms available, what is the flight available. It'll just check, and if you define that kind of role, even it'll book for you. So that is an example of how agentic AI works. So think in terms of organization, there is a whole lot of uh, good set of use cases are there. And I'm glad to say that Regenesis has built so many operational capabilities. Like I told you, research says operations is one of the very best candidate for agentic AI and adoption. So Regenesis has built so many AI agents for many organizations that have really changed the way those organizations were operating. So again, these every tool has a lot of good significance, and people are using these tools as a very surface. There is a very detailed, I mean, as part of the detailed session, we have covered these tools where how effectively we can use these tools to increase and boost the productivity. Now the decision metrics, very very critical, because as a leaders you are primarily responsible and accountable for making decisions. You are not primarily you don't need to write a code, you don't need to create agents. Probably you are the one who need to make decisions around it. How exactly it could make you help you make decisions, because it will enable you with various recommendation thoughts, but at the same time you need to understand how exactly I could create the right guardrails as per your organization. So again, bits and pieces in technology, you need to understand that whenever large language model gives you a response, your organization can enable certain guardrails on top of it that would really customize and ensure that things are working in your own customized way. You can control the response of these things depending on there are more parameter like temperature, top k knots, so which will control your response, your output depending on your need. So everything is about, whenever you need to make a decisions, what are the inputs that you need to consider before making these decisions. Now, these are a couple of examples, live use cases. And at Regenesis, we really believe in research reports. We really believe in certain use cases rather than talking. We really dig deeper into all these use cases, how these organizations adopted generative AI in a very unique way so that they could lead things into the production in a very successful manner. So these are where you could read that Mayo Clinic, AI diagnostic analysis, patient imagining, history at a scale no human could match, right? So we know that AI has a great capability, but to which way we could harness this, which could maintain our quality, which could comply with our organization policies and governance, that is a key which as a leader you need to take care. So again, if you see the current, this is the current picture as on starting of 2026. That picture says that almost 77% of executive AI, they are, it's like it's their priority. The 77% of executives call they want AI adoption anyhow, because they can see their competitors are moving fast. So if they go slow, then they will be left behind in competition. Now, still the figure, the people who wish to adopt is a good number, but how many of you, like I said, they have formal AI governance policy, that number comes to only 35%. And who has actually risked all the who has considered all the guardrails, the risk is a very very less, that is only 12%. You can simply, this is an assessment matrix, if you see in the bottom, you yourself
Hi,
can
Shiv.
understand. Hi.
Sorry to prompt you. We have a few questions from Nitin Rastogi. And since we're at the last 2 to 3 minutes of the masterclass for today, the questions are around analyzing data and what are the impacts of
Mhm.
introduction of DPDP Act on using these tools applications in India.
Sorry, come again. Can you just repeat that question for me?
Okay, so he has basically four tools. Nitin, we can connect with you individually as well to answer all your questions, but I'll begin with a few. What are the ways to anonymize the data
Hmm.
when using, I'm assuming, tools? What are the impacts of introduction of DPDT Act on using these tools and applications in India?
Very good, very good. Great, Nitin. I think this questions is very valid. I'm sure you must be somewhere managing probably the data governance team, or probably you will be heading some certain, the PMO team. So all I could say that your first question was very valid when you say that, how to so DPDP is one of the governance policy we should adhere to. So as a constraint, when you are forming your AI policy at the moment, this entire document will become input while defining the AI policy. So whenever I'm saying that, my data should not cross the boundaries of my country, right, or this kind of data we cannot store, all these policies, that's where it will integrate in my AI policy framework. So that whenever someone is, and AI policies, please do not consider this as just a document. It is a constraint within which the boundaries all the AI models should operate. What was the first question, Faza? That was the answer of the second question. What was the first question?
What are the ways to anonymize data?
Okay. So the very easy use, Nitin, to anonymize the data is, let's say if I'm having a document that contain a lot of client sensitive information, the best way to use it, first de-anonymize this means use a placeholder. You could remove the actual client name, you could put certain probably XYZ or the placeholders, and same way you should de-anonymize any critical sensitive information in terms of figures also. So the whole idea is, once you give this entire document for analysis, there is no way it could identify which client this data belongs to. And once your analysis is done, you could probably get the report back, and you could switch the placeholder with the actual client names, and then you could prepare your report. But again, if it's a very heavy lifting work in your job, then my recommendation strongly is you must use that self-hosting model, because that is the best way to ensure that even though if you forget some de-anonymization, but the model is hosted in your environment, so no data leakage. Your data is very much safe within the boundaries of your organization. Hope that answers, Nitin.
Shiv, he has two other questions as well. When should we start using paid versions over free versions? Is there any benefits from the organizational security and privacy point of view?
Yeah, that's right. There is. So, whenever we say the paid version, first of all, any tool, irrespective of any tool we are talking, the first paid version you will get you queued up into the premier queue, priority queue, which means there is a model which is serving your request. So, if you are onto the paid model, your request will be served on priority rather than any free model. That is the first benefit. But organization perspective, like I said, if you take an example of Copilot, Copilot has a Copilot Web as a free tool. You could simply go and you could just explore, it'll work. But as soon as you log in, then the enterprise grade protection will by default gets applied to you, which means your data will have the enterprise grade encryption, and before it goes to the server. So even if your request gets intercepted by any hacker, still it is encrypted, so it's of no use for him. So this kind of benefit you can experience when you switch from free to paid model. And haven't said this, that of course the kind of free model have a very limited consumptions of token, right? So yeah, once you get paid, you will get a bigger chunk of consumption for the API, for the tokens, for the usage of data. Yeah, hope that answers, Nitin.
Yeah, and he's also raised one more question. Why LLM tool cannot criticize its own response before giving the response to a user?
Yeah, because it is, see, depending on, let's say, it is totally depending on the system prompt. Let's take this an example of a human. You just asked me that, probably, Shiv, can you help me with a document? I prepare a document, but then ask me that, okay, could you please review this document? So even if you review your own work twice or thrice, you might able to find a lot of gaps there, right? So it works on the similar kind of pattern, where the more emphasis you say that could you review your, or you could you critique your response, which means I'm enforcing you to check it again deeply with the deep reasons, and then you will find, oh my god, this is what I have forgot. So it's totally depending on the system prompt. You could, if you're designing an AI agent, I strongly suggest you please review the system prompt, and you could enable this kind of instruction, which could be by default in the first prompt itself. You could say that, okay, once you give the response, you critique it, identify the gaps, fix the gap, and then give me the final response. So in a single prompt, you could enable all these structures so that the final outcome would be very much as per your thought. Anything else? So before we move, all I wanted to say that we have a so this is a very 1 hour workshop where I just wanted to give you a glimpse of what we do, but there is a 32-hour workshop which Regenesis is planning for, especially for the people who are emerging leaders, who wanted to be or who wanted to be a leader in world of AI. So it's this course is very much helpful, and we've been certified by NASCOM. So of course our certificate has a value globally, and we will help you not just go through a kind of presentation like today you saw. We discuss the use cases. From the use cases we define a roadmap, and that's how our entire workshop happens. So yeah, I would suggest you, if you are interested, you can talk to our sales team. Yeah, Faza, over to you. If there is any if there is any more question, you can help me know, or else it's you can take over.
Thank you, Shiv. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining in with us on a Sunday morning. We've shared our website link in the chat box for you all. For any further inquiries, you all can reach out to the Regenesis team over there. And we will be more than happy to connect with you and walk you through the details for the entire program in detail. Thank you, Shiv. Thank you, everyone. Vinay, I think we're good for wrap up. Shiv, we do not have any further questions for this session.
Perfect. Thanks everyone for joining this call. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.